Hey, this is Tom Nash and welcome to the Value Investor by Tip Ranks. Today's video is going to be very different. There's no intro music, there's no jokes. This is a serious matter. This is not going to be a political video. We are going to talk about the stock market and how the current situation in Ukraine and Russia will impact the stock market. We will talk a little bit about the background of the backstory of what's going on right now. But since I feel there's a lot of people who are involved and embroiled in this conflict, I don't want to put music in this video. I don't want to put any jokes. I just want to be serious about it. But obviously, we all have a lot of money in the stock market, and that's also a big concern, and we have to talk about that. Now, I do feel that a lot of you are thirsty for some background and information about what the hell is going on between Russia and Ukraine. You all see the images in the news of the tanks, the explosions. You see the reports, 24/7 news, talking about the conflict. But I feel that there's a big gap between what we're seeing on TV and the lack of backstory. I'm sure that a lot of you kind of are confused about why this is happening, what's going on, how this whole thing started. So in this video, I'll try to achieve two goals, if you permit. One goal would be to give you a little bit more clarity into how we got to this place, what's going on, what are the reasons this is happening, what's going on right now on the ground. And the second part of the video is going to be basically me talking about what I think the stock market will do as part of this whole insanity that is a Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, if you want to skip over just to the stock market part, I'm going to put a timestamp for you guys. If you want to listen to 2 minutes or 3 minutes of background, you might want to stick around for this part. So you have to understand that for those of you who were born after 1990, which is a big part of our viewers, you haven't really seen what the USSR was before the collapse. Before the collapse of the USSR, life in the USSR for Russians was not amazing, and I can attest to that since I was born in 1981. However, the Russian Empire had a lot of clout, a lot of influence, a lot of geopolitical reach, and it was basically rivaling the US, at least in the military might and the capabilities. Now, there's no debate that life in America versus life in the USSR, it's like comparing a potato to a Ferrari. There was no comparison. But still, for the people who had this nationalistic aspirations and enjoyed this sort of thing, definitely the USSR represents a long gone empire that is no more. And you have to understand that Putin is part of that since he's 70 years old. And if you don't believe me, go check it. I know he doesn't look 70. Russians don't really age. Hey, look at me. I'm 40. I don't think I look 40. But yeah, he's 70 years old. He was basically created in the system before the collapse of the USSR. So Putin was created as a KGB operator. KGB was the former version of the Russian intelligence. And he was basically a soldier in that system who moved up the ranks. And he was part of the USSR mechanism. He was part of it when it collapsed. And then he picked up the pieces in the late 90s when he became, the head honcho of Russia. So he saw where they came from, the total dominance, into the collapse of Russia in the 1990s, ending with huge inflation, economy in shambles, no political reach, no clout, and, a really, really bad situation. And a lot of people believe, and I tend to agree with this conclusion, that Putin is holding a candle to what used to be the Russian Empire. In the back of his mind, it seems that he always longed for what was and is no longer there. And since he had to deal with more pressing matters throughout the years, such as rebuilding his economy, creating more geopolitical reach and leverage, and rebuilding his military, it was never about the USSR for him. It was about stabilizing and creating Russia as a dominant force, which you like him, you hate him. I personally don't like Putin. I think he's a very bad man. But he had successes in that field, and Russia has now more political reach, more leverage, and a more stable economy than what he inherited in the late 90s. But now that he's in his late 60s, he's getting into the 70th year of his life, with him basically looking around and seeing that he doesn't have anything else to aspire to. I mean, He's probably one of the richest people in the world, according to all estimates. He has infinite amount of influence and clout and power in Russia, unrivaled. He has, I'm guessing, whatever he wants as far as money, assets, resources. And as you get older, I feel that he doesn't have that passion, that drive anymore. I mean, it's almost like a person that's going to work for 20 years, eventually they get bored. Now you're 70 years old, you look at yourself and say, what's my legacy? At 70, I think that's where people start to really obsess about their legacy. And I feel that Putin, at this stage of his life, now that he achieved everything, he has no monetary goals, he has no political rivals that are not in prison at least. So now he's looking at it and he's saying, well, what's my legacy? What am I in the Russian history? Am I just the guy who made a lot of money? And I think he wants to be, to an extent, the guy that brings back Russia all the way through. Not part of the way, not 70% of the way, all the way through. Now, I don't think he knows exactly how far he's willing to take this, but I think in the back of his mind, he wants to have some sort of a rebuild project, which is some sort of a USSR 2.0. And the fact is that throughout the past 2 decades, that desire was fueled by the fact that the West has expanded NATO presence in Eastern Europe, adding more and more former Warsaw Pact members into NATO, Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria. There's many other examples. And at this point, this combined with his own personal longings and legacy wants, and him kind of seeing himself this reincarnation of Lenin or Stalin or whatever it is. So he's kind of looking at this and he's saying, well, this is the last chance I have for my legacy, because if Ukraine, which is kind of the last stand, if you look at the map right now of Russia, you'll see that Ukraine is the only country that's separating Russia and NATO forces. If they add Ukraine to NATO, that dream is gone, because there's not going to be any more options for him to apply his reach over Ukraine. And I think he knows that this is his shot to try and recapture Ukraine, at least if not by force, which seems to be what he's doing right now, but by influence. So that kind of is the backstory of what's going on right now. If you ask him, he'll tell you, well, NATO expanded all the way into my backyard. I had no choice. And if you ask the Western countries, they'll claim that Putin is invading a sovereign, peaceful country, which he is, by the way. And there's no way to justify what he's doing. And I'm not. I think he's a bad man, and I think it's completely unjustified. And yet, we're here. So now that you know the backstory of what's motivating Putin, because to be honest, there's nobody in Russia that in his right mind wants this war. All my Russian friends are saying the same thing. They have no desire to go to war with Ukraine, same in Ukraine, same in Europe. There's no logic here, economical, there's no logic here, financial. There's nothing in this war beyond just one simple, egoistic, kind of megalomaniac desire by one person to reestablish the USSR. And he's willing to drag this whole continent with him into this adventure. Now, the real question here, now that we know the backstory, why this just happened, why Putin is doing what he's doing, how the stock market is going to react. Now we're getting to the interesting part of the stock market. So the stock market isn't going to like this. I'm assuming we're going to see very negative days ahead for as long as this continues. I'm assuming the S&P 500 is going to take a hit. The NASDAQ is going to take even harder hit. The Dow will also take a hit, maybe not as bad. And we'll see the safe haven flourishing. Oil prices are going to go through the roof. In fact, as of the making of this video, oil is up 7% over the past 24 hours, well beyond $100 a barrel. So energy prices are going to go skyrocketing. Commodities are going to go skyrocketing. And every safe haven that people tend to flock to in times of crisis is going to do well. Tech companies, growth companies, any sort of non-safe haven stocks are going to suffer. However, and that's kind of more of an academic description of what's about to happen, if we know history, we know that any big crisis in the stock market, especially one that's driven by geopolitical tensions and wars, tends to end with a big bounce. So when it actually ends, there's a big bounce from the market. And the problem with that is that we are 100% certain that the bounce will come once this crisis is over. It's just we don't know when. Without knowing when it's going to come, it's pretty much useless information, because trying to time the market right now is one of the most foolish things we can do, because we don't know where the bottom is. So if you don't know where the bottom is and you're trying to step with your foot into the darkness, you might fall 3 stories down and break your legs, and maybe even worse. And that's exactly what you might do if you try to time the market and try to get on that bounce. And as Warren Buffett once said, timing the market is a foolish thing to do. I would just add, it's a stupid thing to do. And, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. While academically, we know that there's a bounce coming, I wouldn't try to jump in the market right now or anytime soon as this kind of anticipating act. So for me, the strategy remains the same. I'm going to be keeping buying the companies I absolutely want to invest in the next 5 years, the businesses I feel confident about, like a Tesla, like the S&P 500, like Google, like Palantir. I like those businesses. I like those companies. I like that management. I'm going to keep investing my money into these companies. I'm not going to try to time the market, and I suggest you won't either, because missing that timing, it can cost you a lot of money, and hitting that timing is like winning the lottery. It's just not worth your effort and time, and the risk versus upside is just too darn risky. So this is obviously not financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor, so you do you. But as a word of caution for those of you who think that they found the bottom in this, just be careful. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if the market is going to go up or down. I don't know what's going to happen in Ukraine going forward. At this point, nobody knows. There's only one guy that knows. His name is Vladimir Putin. He's probably the only one who knows what's coming next. And we definitely can't anticipate the market. So my just message here is for you. I know it's hard right now. I know you're all looking at this bloodbath of a market and everybody's sad, and it's unpleasant what's going on in Ukraine. It's horrifying to watch these footage, and your portfolio is all red. And I know it seems horrible, but just hang in there. We're all in this together. And mainly for those of you who are looking for adventures, just be careful. Don't do anything stupid. Ride it out, wait it out, and I'm sure that we'll have better days ahead. I hope I didn't ramble too much in this video. Let us know below. I know it's a little bit different. We're going back to the normal videos on Monday. Just want to kind of give you a little bit more geopolitical insight and actual analysis of what's going on right now, and a word of caution about trying to time this market. Let us know below what you guys think.